I watched them leave, my son and his wife, with Charlie in tow, disappearing down the street without a glance back. Still, I didn't move, the weight of their absence pressing harder than the cold outside. While the house echoed with their silence, I picked up my phone, the screen lighting up with their last excuse. Charlie's grooming appointment. The same betrayal stung sharper than I expected. That's when it hit me. Why wait for them to show up? I erased their names from the will. No one leaves me behind. Not anymore. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Elaine stares at the text again. Sorry, we can't swing by tonight. Charlie has a grooming appointment first thing. He gets anxious. Christmas Eve. Her kitchen is quiet, the table set for 3, the candles untouched. She lowers her phone slowly, setting it down on the counter. Her gaze flickers to the empty chairs. The stillness in the room feels too big, like a space that swallows everything. The ham sandwich in front of her is cold, its brown bread dry. She takes a bite, but it tastes like nothing. Her throat feels tight. Outside, carolers pass by, singing Silent Night. Their voices light and bright in the evening air. She doesn't open the door. She doesn't feel like pretending, not tonight. Instead, she watches them from the window. Bright scarves, smiles on their faces, their laughter echoing against the chill. She pulls back from the glass, as if their joy might break something inside her. A flash of memory pulls her in. Last year, the turkey was overcooked, dry and leathery. But there had been laughter, the warm glow of the oven, a sense of togetherness that filled the gaps. At least there had been presence, even if the food was ruined. This year, silence. No voices, no warmth, just the hum of the refrigerator and the wind rattling at the windows. She taps the counter with her fingers, her mind unable to settle. Her eyes flick to the calendar on the wall, where December 25th is circled in bold red ink. A stark reminder of what was supposed to be, of what never came. Her finger moves to mark the previous day. She presses down hard, leaving a thick streak of ink. No one came. She feels a pang in her chest, sharp and familiar. A lonely kind of ache. Her phone buzzes again. Another text. A picture of Charlie at the grooming salon, looking scruffy with wide eyes. She doesn't respond. There's nothing to say. The silence becomes unbearable. She pushes the sandwich aside and stands up. The chair scraping against the floor. She crosses to the window, pressing her hands to the cold glass. The night stretches out before her. In the distance, she sees lights twinkling in the homes across the street, the kind of warmth she doesn't have. It's like a cruel joke, the way those lights shine so brightly in contrast to the dark inside her own home. A noise in the living room interrupts her thoughts. The scratching sound at the door is soft but persistent. Her heart skips. She stands frozen for a moment, not sure what to do, the room too quiet, too still. Another scratching, then a gentle tap. She crosses the room slowly, the tension building in her chest. She reaches the door and, with a deep breath, opens it. The cold air hits her face. Standing on the porch is a figure, cloaked in shadows, their face hidden beneath the brim of a heavy coat. But the dog standing at their feet, tail wagging softly, is unmistakable. Charlie. And just behind them, Will's voice cuts through the chill. Elaine, Merry Christmas. Her breath catches. She stares, blinking, at the man who had been so absent in her life for so long. He looks tired, a little weathered, but still him. For a moment, she can't speak. The words catch in her throat, tangled in something she can't name. Elaine pulls the envelope from the drawer, its corners frayed from years of being pushed aside. The weight of it in her hands is heavier than it should be, more like a stone than paper. She's avoided it for so long, but tonight, on Christmas Eve, she can't put it off anymore. The will. She slides the paper out carefully, its edges crisp, still smelling faintly of ink and time. She holds it for a moment, feeling the coldness of its permanence settle over her. Then she reads, Thao and Dana as primary beneficiaries. The words feel too sharp, too final. She moves her finger across the lines, but it's not the words that have caught her attention. It's the sticky note still stuck to the top corner. Remember to leave space for Charlie's trust. The handwriting is Dana's. Neat, calculated, and a little too cheerful. It's a reminder one Elaine had asked her to write so long ago when Charlie was just a pup. He had been Theo's first, then Dana's. But Elaine now, she was his only real caretaker. The thought of Charlie's future without her makes her throat tighten, makes her question everything she thought she understood about family, about who she was meant to be in their lives. Her hands shake as she rereads the note, the words blurring together. Not from age, but from something colder. The air in the room feels thinner. She presses the sticky note back onto the paper, as though placing it back in its place will somehow make the fear go away. But it doesn't. It never does. She sets the will down and stands, crossing to the small table in the corner of the room. It's covered with dust from neglect. But there's a stack of cans there, food for the Haven House, where she volunteers each week. She doesn't visit the residents anymore. It's easier to donate, to leave without saying anything, than to try to fill a space where she doesn't belong. Not anymore. She picks up the bags of food and heads to her car, the cold air stinging her face as she steps outside. The streets are quiet, no sign of life. The city's breath has gone still. At the Haven House, the lights are dim, the warm glow of holiday decorations muted under the weight of solitude. She unloads the cans with practiced care. Angela, the volunteer coordinator, looks up from the desk and smiles warmly. "Elaine," she says, "you're here more than some of our staff." Elaine nods, offering a faint smile of her own. She can't bring herself to say anything in response. What's the point? Her presence here, the simple act of showing up, feels like the only thing in her life that still matters. "I just needed to be somewhere," Elaine says softly, "where showing up still mattered." Angela doesn't ask what she means. Instead, she walks around the desk and places a hand on Elaine's arm. "I think I know someone who can help with that," she says, her voice low. "A lawyer, Gabriel Yee. He does pro bono work for community elders. Maybe he can help with the trust you've been thinking about. For Charlie." Elaine's heart skips a beat. Trusts, lawyers, paperwork. It all seems too much to consider right now, but Angela is insistent. "You should meet him," she says. "It's worth it. You deserve to be taken care of." Elaine looks at Angela, at the soft compassion in her eyes, and wonders if maybe, just maybe, she deserves more than she's been allowing herself to think. The weight of the will, the future of Charlie, the loneliness of it all feels too much, too soon. But before she can respond, Angela hands her a card, the name Gabriel Yee embossed in simple black lettering. Elaine turns it over in her fingers, considering, and then, with a deep breath, she slips it into her pocket, a door she hasn't thought to open, until now. Elaine sits across from Gabriel Yee, the low hum of the office's heater mingling with the soft tapping of rain on the window. She had called him that morning, after slipping Angela's card from her coat pocket. The lawyer's office smells like coffee and aged books, the air thick with the weight of things that have been settled and those still to come. Gabriel's office is neat, orderly, with a bookshelf filled with legal texts and family photos. His, Elaine assumes. There's a quiet sense of authority in his demeanor, but also something warm, something human. She doesn't know why she's here exactly. The words she's meant to say feel stuck in her throat. But he doesn't rush her. Instead, he listens, his pen poised above a blank sheet of paper, ready to write whatever story she's about to tell. "I was a teacher," Elaine begins, her voice cracking slightly as the memories press in. "For nearly 30 years. English, history, whatever they needed me to teach. I taught, I saved. I built a life after Theo died." Her fingers, clasped in her lap, tighten. She looks down at them, at the gnarled skin and the worn nails, then back up at Gabriel, who hasn't moved, hasn't said a word, just waits. "I bought this house outright, saved for it. Every month, every year, I put a little aside. I had a pension, nothing extravagant, but enough to live on." She lets out a short laugh, bitter but not mocking. "I thought I'd worked hard enough to earn the peace I was promised. A quiet, full life. But it wasn't that simple." Gabriel waits. Elaine takes a breath, the weight of the years, the disappointments, coming in waves. She doesn't know how to say this. how to explain how everything changed, but she forces the words out anyway. They used to come by every Sunday, then it became just Christmas, then just cards. Her chest tightens, and she feels her throat constrict. She had built everything she could, a life, a home, yet somehow, every year, the distance between her and the people she loved grew wider, until there was nothing left but the ink on a page, words, signatures, and all the promises they had never kept. Gabriel puts down his pen, finally speaking. His voice is steady, reassuring. Elaine, you don't have to carry this alone. We can revise your estate, make your voice permanent. We can create something that represents everything you've worked for, a legacy that's truly yours. Elaine's eyes meet his. His words hover in the air like a promise she's not sure she's ready to accept. But she knows what she has to do. She exhales, slow and deliberate. Let's leave them the one thing they left me. Nothing. Gabriel doesn't flinch, doesn't question. He nods. A professional acknowledgement of her resolve. There's a pause as she leans forward, her voice quiet but resolute. I want to add something else. A trust for Charlie, sure. But I also want to add Angela. She's been more of a family to me than they ever were. Gabriel raises an eyebrow but says nothing, waiting for her to continue. I want her as trustee for a youth scholarship, Elaine goes on, her voice gaining strength. And a shelter renovation. There are kids who don't have the opportunities I had. And there are families, real families, who need a place to rebuild. I want my legacy to help them, not leave them with nothing. She feels a strange peace settle over her as she speaks, as if something is finally falling into place, a sense of agency she hasn't had in years, a sense that, for once, she's taking control of her own future, not waiting for someone else to decide it for her. Gabriel picks up his pen again, ready to draft the changes, but his expression is thoughtful, careful. Elaine, I think this will be a legacy that outlives them all. Elaine nods, her heart light for the first time in a long while. It will. And as Gabriel begins to write, she realizes that, for the first time in years, she is no longer looking back at the past with regret. Instead, she is shaping the future, one word at a time. The knock at the door is hesitant, almost apologetic. Elaine freezes for a moment, her hand mid-air with the kettle, the steam swirling up toward the ceiling. It's late, too late for anyone but family or some forgotten delivery. Her heart skips as the thought crosses her mind, but it's gone before she can focus on it. She opens the door, and there, standing in the cool evening light, is Marin, boots scuffed from a long walk, eyes shadowed with something unspoken. I didn't know, Marin says, her voice small, guilt heavy in every syllable. I didn't agree. Elaine's gaze softens. It's been years since the girl, no, the young woman, was here. Since the days when she was small enough to climb into Elaine's lap, asking questions about everything and nothing. But the years had passed, and the distance between them had grown like an invisible wall, built from misunderstandings, absent Sundays, and the silence that had come after Theo's death. You didn't know what, Marin? Elaine asks, a thread of confusion in her voice, though the pieces already begin to fit. I didn't know they were going to leave things this way. Marin's eyes drop to the floor, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her bag. I didn't agree. I didn't want it to be like this. Elaine feels the weight of her granddaughter's words sink in, and she's not surprised. She hasn't been surprised by much for a while, but it still stings. The idea that the younger generation, her blood, had been caught in the wake of all the decisions made long before she could speak up. Come in, Elaine says, her tone even, her face carefully composed. She steps aside to let Marin pass. I thought you were all busy with the dog. Marin's head snaps up at the mention of Charlie, her face shifting between guilt and tenderness. It's a dog. You're my grandmother. Elaine nods, closing the door softly behind them, the sound muffled by the heavy silence that follows. She gestures toward the small kitchen table, where the remnants of the ham sandwich from earlier sit, now half forgotten. They eat the leftovers in quiet, companionable solitude. Marin tells Elaine about college, about the loneliness she hadn't known would come with independence, the isolation of trying to fit in while holding on to a piece of the past she wasn't sure how to define. Elaine listens, her own loneliness mirrored in the girl's words, though neither of them acknowledges the quiet thread that binds them in this moment. The passing of years, the space between them, has carved new landscapes in both their lives. When the last of the food is cleared and the teacups are drained, Elaine reaches for the will. She unfolds the papers carefully, the edges creased, the weight of them now a familiar presence. Marin watches her with a quiet curiosity, not asking, not pushing. Elaine places the will in front of Marin, her finger tracing the clause with practiced precision. "I've made some changes. Thought you might want to see." Marin's eyes scan the paper, her brows furrowing as they reach her name, neatly inscribed under the clause titled Unconditional Presence. For a moment, there's nothing. Then Marin's breath catches, and her hand trembles just slightly as she sets the paper back on the table. "You don't have to give me anything," she says, her voice thick with emotion, her gaze avoiding Elaine's. Elaine reaches across the table, taking her granddaughter's hands gently in her own. "I already have," she says, her voice soft but steady, grounding them both. "You are the presence I needed all along, even if you didn't know it." The words hang between them, unspoken acknowledgments of things lost and things found. Elaine squeezes Marin's hands, the weight of what she's given more valuable than anything material, an inheritance of presence, of memory, and of forgiveness. Marin looks up, her eyes wet, the corners of her lips trembling in an uncertain smile. Elaine's heart shifts. In this moment, she realizes that what she's truly left behind isn't a house, or money, or even Charlie's trust. It's the chance to begin again. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important legacy she can give. The phone rings, its trill sharp against the quiet of the evening. Elaine hesitates for only a moment, then picks it up, already knowing who it will be. It's the voice that's become too familiar over the years, the one that had once carried the weight of shared days and promises. Now, it feels more like an echo of what's been lost. "Hey, Mom," Theo's voice comes through, cheerful, oblivious. "We missed you, but the dog's looking sharp." Elaine feels a small, bitter laugh catch in her throat. The dog's looking sharp. The words land like an insult, a reminder of the space between them, the widening gulf. Charlie, her companion, her anchor, has become a passing mention. She bites back the frustration, keeping her tone neutral. "So glad to know he got seen," she replies, her voice steady, even. There's a brief silence on the other end before Theo continues, his words flowing with practiced ease. "Well, I was thinking, maybe I can swing by after New Year's, unless the schedule's too full?" Elaine listens, the words washing over her, but they don't touch her. Not really, the casual suggestion of a visit. The easy assumption that the door is still open, that things are as they were. The layers of meaning behind his words are lost on him. Elaine lets the silence linger a moment longer than necessary. "You know," she says, her voice quiet but firm, "let's not force it." There's a pause on the other end. Then Theo's voice softens, as though he's trying to find a way to make it sound like everything is fine. "Right, of course. We'll catch up soon. After New Year's, then. Take care, Mom." She doesn't respond, just presses the phone to her ear, hearing the faint click of the line going dead. The silence in the room after the call feels suffocating, heavier now, as though the weight of the conversation has filled the empty space around her. She sets the phone down carefully, the stillness in the air pressing down on her chest. Later, the phone buzzes again, a sharp reminder that the distance hasn't closed. Not really. Dana's name flashes across the screen. Elaine's thumb hovers over the message for a moment before she opens it. "Hope you're not upset. We figured you'd understand." The words sting in their casualness, as though they are entitled to her understanding, as though everything, every slight, every absence, was just part of the deal. Elaine sets the phone down again, her hands trembling. She looks around the room, the weight of it all pressing in, the silence, the distance, the irreparable cracks that have formed over the years. She reaches for the stack of papers on the table, her revised estate documents. The papers are crisp, cold in her hands, as though the very act of drafting them is one more step toward the finality she has been forced to confront. She picks up her pen, the motion automatic. The ink flows smoothly across the page as she begins drafting letters to accompany the estate documents. Letters to her children, explaining the changes, the decisions made, decisions that, for the first time in years, have been entirely her own. Her pen pauses over the words, a weight she hadn't expected settling over her once again. This writing feels different. The words feel final. She can almost hear Theo's voice in her head again, that same cheerful oblivion. We figured you'd understand. Her hand shakes as she finishes the letter, the words somehow both liberating and suffocating at once. She looks at the letters she's written, then back at the empty house, and for a moment wonders if any of them, Theo, Dana, anyone, will ever understand the choice she's made, or if they'll just keep calling, waiting for things to go back to what they were. And the silence settles in again, colder this time, deeper than before. Elaine sits at her kitchen table, the light from the overhead lamp casting long shadows on the cluttered surface. The stack of estate papers lies in front of her, a cold reminder of the decisions she has made. But it's the letter, the final piece, that occupies her mind now. Her hand hovers above the paper, the pen cold and heavy in her grasp. There are things she needs to say, things that have been unsaid for too long. She writes, Theo, Dana, each year you skipped. Each time I said, it's okay. I thought you would come back eventually, that the years would stop slipping by in silence. But every year you missed, you took something with you, something that I can never get back. My patience, my love, my belief that we could rebuild what had been broken. Her hand trembles slightly as she writes, the words coming from somewhere deep inside her, a place of hurt she has kept buried for far too long. She continues, you made promises to me and to each other. You said you would be there, that family was the most important thing. But over time, family became a word, not a presence. It became something you said when you needed to excuse the distance, the excuses. You said it was just a phase, just a rough patch. I waited, I believed. But now, all I have is the echo of that belief and the quiet, the silence between us. She stops, the pen poised over the paper, and for the first time, she allows herself to feel the weight of all the years she spent excusing their absence, the weight of all the times she convinced herself that things would improve, but they never did. I made excuses for you too. I told myself it was okay, that one day you would see and you would come back. But one day has turned into many years. I've reached the end of those days. There is no more okay. She pauses, the pain of those words cutting deeper than she expected. But this isn't about them. This is about her, about what she has earned, not from them, but from herself. Love is not a calendar slot. It's not something you can mark off on a schedule and then forget about for the rest of the year. Legacy isn't inherited, it's earned, by showing up, by being present. And for too long, you weren't here. She lets the words sit for a moment before she signs her name, but not in the way she had once thought she would. Not with warmth, not with forgiveness. No, Elaine. Her hand sets the pen down, her fingers pressing into the cool surface of the table. She reads the letter again, every word as cold and sharp as the finality she feels in her chest. There's no turning back now. It's done. She feels a quiet relief wash over her, but it's not the relief she thought it would be. It's something harder, something heavier. The doorbell rings then, cutting through the silence. Elaine doesn't move immediately. She waits, her heart steadying, before rising and crossing to the door. When she opens it, Angela is standing there, a smile on her face but a knowing look in her eyes. You've been busy, I see, Angela says, glancing at the papers on the table. Elaine nods, a faint smile pulling at her lips. Busy doesn't always mean progress, she says softly, but there's a quiet strength in her voice now, something more grounded than before. Angela steps inside, handing her a small envelope. This is for you, she says, her voice warm. I wanted to personally invite you to speak at the winter fundraiser. You've done so much for this community. Your story is familiar to more people than you think. Elaine takes the envelope, her fingers brushing against the smooth surface. She doesn't know why, but something stirs inside her, a sense of connection, of purpose, maybe even of recognition. She had spent so many years waiting for her family to see her, to appreciate her. But maybe this was what truly mattered. This was where her legacy would be written. She looks at Angela, her heart filled with something new, something unexpected. "I'll be there," she says quietly. As Angela smiles, Elaine feels it. The weight of all the years of waiting, of hoping, finally slipping away. She doesn't need them to understand her choice. She doesn't need their approval. The people who truly matter have already found her. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Elaine scrolls through her phone absent-mindedly, her thumb stopping as a new post from Dana appears in her feed. The photo is bright, polished, a glossy reflection of a life that looks almost perfect. Theo, smiling with that easy grin of his, stands at the center, the dog, Charlie, by his side. It's a typical holiday shot, the kind families post, designed to show the world what they want them to see. But something is off. The edges of the frame are tight, cropped just so. Elaine squints at the image, her heart thumping as she looks for what's missing. Then it clicks, the space where Marin should be, the empty space next to Theo. She opens the comments, her fingers hovering over the screen as she reads the caption. Family Christmas 2025. So grateful for another year together. Her chest tightens, and the small flicker of disappointment ignites into something sharper. Beneath the post, a message from Marin pops up in her notifications, a short text. They asked if I'd stay out of pics, said it complicated the mood. Elaine's heart sinks. She bites back the bitterness that threatens to overwhelm her. She swipes through the photo again, this time noticing the way Dana stands a little too close to Theo, the way they look almost rehearsed, as if they're playing the part of a perfect family without Marin in the frame, without the grief that had followed them, lingering like a shadow they'd rather not acknowledge. Grief, she thinks bitterly, not on brand. She sets the phone down gently, the weight of it all pressing in again. Her fingers trace the edge of her journal, and she opens it with a soft sigh. She writes a few lines, the ink flowing as easily as the thoughts in her mind. Apparently, grief isn't on brand. The words feel cold on the page, but true. Dana and Theo had always known how to dress up their emotions, how to frame their lives for an audience. They'd learned early on that perfection sells better than reality. She sets the journal down and looks at the photo she'd taken last summer with Marin. It's a candid shot, just the two of them, smiles wide, laughter caught in the warmth of the afternoon. A picture of what's real. Without thinking, Elaine grabs a frame from the shelf above and slips the photo inside. She picks up the phone and dials the Haven House, her fingers moving with a sense of purpose. "I'd like to send a photo for your new family wall," she says, when someone picks up. "It's just me and my granddaughter. I think it would be a good addition." The person on the other end agrees, and Elaine arranges to have it sent. As she sets the phone down, there's a small shift in the air, a subtle weight lifting. The world outside may never understand her choices, but here, in this space, there is something real, something worth holding on to. Later that day, Angela stops by the house, a small smile curving her lips as she surveys the framed photo on the table. "This is what legacy looks like," she says softly, her voice warm, understanding. Elaine feels the weight of those words sink in, the comfort of knowing she's doing something that truly matters. She nods in response, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I hope so." There's a pause before Elaine speaks again, her voice quieter this time, but steady. "I've decided to write a check for the shelter kitchen remodel. Call it Charlie's Table." Angela raises an eyebrow, impressed. "You sure you want to name it after him?" Elaine's eyes soften, the memory of Charlie's loyal companionship rising to the surface. "It feels right. He's the one who showed me what it means to truly show up. Every day." Angela smiles, understanding. "A table for those who truly show up." Elaine nods, her heart a little lighter than it was before. In this small act, one of giving, of naming, it feels like she's found a piece of herself she didn't even know she was missing. It's a legacy of her own making, one that won't be cropped out or erased. As she watches Angela leave, a thought settles in her mind, firm and unshakable. This is where I begin. The phone rings, pulling Elaine from the quiet solace of her kitchen. It's too early for anyone but Theo. She glances at the screen and takes a steadying breath before picking it up. "Did we get some weird legal mail from you?" Theo's voice comes through the line, sharp and puzzled, but not unkind. He's trying to sound unaffected, but the tension is unmistakable. Elaine doesn't flinch. "Not weird, just accurate," she replies, her voice steady, almost too calm. She knows what this call is about. She'd expected it. Theo lets out a small exhale, the sound of his frustration barely contained. "Elaine, come on, you can't be serious. You're punishing us for one missed holiday?" His words come fast, as though he's trying to talk his way around the truth before it fully sinks in. "It's not like we meant to hurt you." Elaine's fingers tighten on the phone, the heat of his words radiating through the receiver. It's not the first time they've missed something important, and it won't be the last, if she lets it. "It wasn't the first," she says, her voice as sharp as the words she's been holding back for years. "It was just the last I'll excuse." There's a pause. The silence hangs between them, thick and unspoken. Theo doesn't know how to respond, and that, Elaine realizes, is the point. He never truly heard her. Not in all those years of excuses, of missed birthdays, of hollow promises. Finally, he sighs, defeated. "I don't know what you want from us, Elaine. We didn't mean for it to go this far. But if this is what you want, she's heard enough. What I want is for you to understand, to show up. But that's not something you've ever done, is it?" The words cut through the phone, and she can feel the finality settle over them both. Theo doesn't say anything else. There's no more defense, just the slow exhale of disappointment. And then he hangs up. Elaine doesn't linger on the call. She's already moving. She picks up the email from Dana, a terse message forwarded from Marin that arrived while Theo was calling. "Why are you letting her do this to us?" The question stings, but it doesn't surprise her. Dana's words have always been coded in blame, a way to make it seem like the problem is always someone else, always her. Elaine stares at the message for a moment, her finger hovering over the reply button, but there's nothing left to say. Marin won't respond. Not to that. She already knows. They all do. The distance has been carved, layer by layer, and there's no erasing it now. She closes the email, setting the phone down with a quiet finality. Then, reaching for the papers again, she sees that Gabriel has sent her the finalized medical directive and updated emergency contacts. They're cold, methodical, but necessary. His handwriting on the page is steady, professional. He's done everything she's asked, made it all legal, binding, as it should have been from the start. She doesn't know why she's surprised. She'd expected pushback. She'd expected them to fight her on this, but she hadn't anticipated how quiet it would be. How final. With the last of the documents in her hands, Elaine feels a strange calm settle over her. She has made her choices. She is no longer the woman who waited for approval, the woman who kept silent while others made decisions for her. As she places the documents into the file, her gaze drifts to the framed photo of Maureen on the mantel. She smiles softly, thinking of the laughter they shared, the moments that felt like the real thing. She knows Marin will never be fully understood by them, but Elaine can offer her something they never gave her: presence. She picks up the phone again, this time dialing Gabriel's number. "Gabriel," she says when he picks up, "I want you to make sure these are filed, all of them. And when it's done, send me the final copy. I need to make sure it's permanent." "Understood," Gabriel replies, his tone steady, calm. "I'll take care of it." Elaine hangs up, and for a moment she simply stands there, letting the quiet fill the room. It's a silence she's earned, a silence that no one else can fill. Elaine and Angela stand side by side in the shelter's music room, a space that's seen more chaos than harmony in recent months. The floor is scattered with old vinyl records and a few mismatched chairs. The windows are covered with graffiti-stained curtains, but the music is clear, bright, and filling the room. The kids are dancing, unself-conscious, wild, free. The needle drops on the record, the scratch of vinyl giving way to the rich voice of Motown, Marvin Gaye. The kids start to move, some of them tentative at first, unsure of the rhythm. But then the beat kicks in, and their bodies follow it, one by one, like the music is calling them into something they've never known. Elaine can't help but smile, watching the younger ones stumble and laugh as they find their footing in the music. Angela stands across from her, a knowing look on her face. "You're a good teacher," she says with a quiet chuckle, watching as Elaine helps a shy girl twist and sway, her face lighting up as the music takes over. Elaine shrugs, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I had good teachers." One of the teens, a lanky boy with too much attitude for his age, pauses mid-step and glances at Elaine. "Who's Sam Cooke?" he asks, the question hovering in the air. Elaine's heart gives a quiet thrum. "Let me show you," she replies, moving toward the record shelf. She pulls a Sam Cooke album from the rack, its cover slightly faded, a piece of history she's always carried with her. The boy watches, curious, as she places the record on the turntable. As the needle hits the grooves, the opening notes of "A Change Is Gonna Come" fill the room, soft, poignant, heavy with a timeless kind of hope. The room quiets as the music begins, and for a moment it feels like everyone is listening to the same pulse. Elaine watches their faces, seeing the transformation in their eyes as the song takes root in them. She lets it play through, her hands folded in front of her. When the music fades, she looks around the room at the teenagers, their attention caught by something they didn't expect. "Sam Cooke," she says gently, "knew what it meant to fight for change. He understood that even in the hardest times, there's always hope, always something to fight for." The room is still for a few seconds, the silence hanging heavier than before. Then one of the kids, a small girl with bright eyes, turns to Elaine. "That song makes me feel better," she says, her voice soft. Elaine smiles, a warmth blooming in her chest. "That's what music does," she says, her voice thick with something she hasn't quite let herself feel in a while. Later, Marin arrives, and they set to work painting the wall in the back corner. A quote from Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come" is the new mural's centerpiece. The lyrics bleed across the wall, bold and defiant. "It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come." The words are imperfect, the strokes uneven in some places, but the message is clear, a declaration of what has to come next. As they paint, Marin steps back and looks at the work with a satisfied smile. "This is it, right? The change?" Elaine nods, her heart lighter than it's been in years. This is just the beginning. Later that evening, as the shelter quiets and the last few kids leave, Elaine checks her phone. Another message from Theo. His words are familiar, trying to wedge a door open that was already closed. "Dad wouldn't have wanted this," Theo's text reads. Elaine doesn't hesitate. She types her reply without even thinking about it. "He'd be proud I finally said no." There's no follow-up message from Theo, no rebuttal. The silence that follows feels different now, final, but without the weight it used to carry. The next morning, Gabriel calls. "Elaine, I finalized everything. The charitable trust is now in your name, and Marin's been listed as the successor trustee." Elaine listens, the words settling over her like a quiet assurance. "Thank you, Gabriel," she says softly. As the call ends, she sets her phone down. Her eyes land on a small framed receipt on the desk, the Haven House's first donation receipt, one of many to come. Angela had framed it with a small note, proof people can change things when they stop waiting for an apology. Elaine reaches for the frame, her fingers tracing the edges of the glass. She smiles, her thoughts circling back to those same words. Stop waiting. The music room, the walls now painted with hope, the donations rolling in. This is the legacy she's building, a legacy she's earned, one not based on their approval but on her own. And maybe, for the first time in her life, that's enough. Elaine stands at the podium in the Roosevelt Room Library, the room softly lit, its quiet energy radiating with the anticipation of her words. She's not used to public speaking, hasn't been the center of attention for a long time, but tonight is different. Tonight she's not speaking to please anyone, not seeking approval. She's here to share a story that is hers, that has shaped her, and that will continue to shape the world in its own way. She opens her journal, the worn pages familiar under her fingers. The title of the entry catches her eye, a quiet echo of all that has come before. The Christmas Nobody Came. She clears her throat, steadying herself, and begins to read aloud, her voice soft but unwavering. It was Christmas Eve, and the table was set for 3. My ham sandwich sat untouched as I watched the carolers pass by. their voices a stark contrast to the silence inside. The phone buzzed again, and I read the message. Charlie has a grooming appointment. We can't make it tonight. No one came. I marked the calendar in red ink and left it at that. The phone buzzed again, but there was nothing left to say. Not that night or any of the others when the seats at my table remained empty. I waited for what felt like a lifetime, and then, finally, I stopped. She pauses after the last sentence, her voice quieting, her eyes scanning the room. The library is hushed. The only sound the soft shuffle of the pages in her hands. She doesn't look at the attendees, but she can feel them. She can feel their attention, their emotion, and it gives her strength. The room is still, save for the sound of soft sniffles. One woman wipes her eyes, and Elaine sees a subtle nod from across the room. A connection. This woman understands. She doesn't need to speak it aloud. That Christmas, Elaine continues, wasn't just a holiday. It was the moment I stopped waiting. It was the moment I realized that I had spent so many years hoping for something that was never going to happen. And so, I chose to create a life that was mine. One that didn't depend on the kindness or presence of others. I found family in the places I least expected. In the faces of strangers. In the music that filled the empty space. In the shelter that became my second home. Elaine's words come easier now, flowing without effort. She speaks from the heart, not from the bitterness of the past, but from a quiet strength built from it. When she finishes, there's a beat of silence, and then someone in the front row whispers, "That happened to me too." Elaine's chest tightens. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected her own loneliness to resonate so deeply in others. The shared sorrow, the unspoken grief that connects them. It feels less like pity and more like recognition. Gabriel, who had been sitting at the back, nods with approval. As soon as the event concludes, he approaches her, his face softer than usual. "Elaine," he says quietly, "I think we need to reprint this. There are so many who need to hear it. Elder advocacy groups, support services. This speech belongs in their hands. It'll speak louder than any pamphlet we've printed." Elaine nods, feeling a quiet warmth at his words. "It's just my story," she replies. "But the truth is, it's more than that. It's the story of so many who've been forgotten, overlooked, dismissed. And now she's making sure they're heard." Later that week, Marin starts her blog. She calls it Letters to the Forgotten. A space for stories like Elaine's. Stories that need to be told. Stories that have been left untold for far too long. Elaine's story is the first post. The first of many, and as she reads through the blog's first entry, she smiles, a mix of pride and something else, something deeper, a sense of fulfillment. But then, as if on cue, a new message flashes on Elaine's phone. She hesitates before opening it. Already knowing who it's from, Dana. Another passive-aggressive comment, another attempt to make her feel guilty for the choices she's made. Family isn't about gifts, it's about forgiveness. Elaine sets the phone down without responding, her heart heavy but resolute. She doesn't need to explain herself to them. She's already given everything she needed to give, and it's time to move forward. With a deep breath, she looks at Marin, who's busy working on a new post, her fingers flying across the keys. Elaine realizes that this is the future. This right here is her legacy. One that speaks louder than words. One that will echo in places and hearts that matter. And for the first time in a long time, she feels like she's exactly where she's supposed to be. Marin's blog, Letters to the Forgotten, begins to take off in ways neither of them expected. What started as a small corner of the internet, where they could share stories about forgotten elders and the pain of being unseen, has turned into something much bigger. A post about Elaine's experience, the Christmas nobody came, hits a nerve. It spreads like wildfire, shared in caregiving forums, elder abuse support groups, and places where the stories of the overlooked are given voice. Elaine watches the numbers climb. The comments flood in, a steady stream of voices, each one echoing the pain she's known too well. "Thank you. Me too. This is my mother's story." For every message, a new layer of connection builds. People who've lived through the same kind of silence, the same hollow absence. The post becomes a chorus of voices that fill the space Elaine had once thought was hers alone. The words from strangers sting and heal in equal measure, but there is something else that catches her attention. One comment in particular stands out. "You are not unlovable. They are unpracticed." Elaine sits with the words for a long time. They're not a cure for the pain, but they are a lifeline, one she can reach out and hold on to. She prints the thread, places it in a folder with her other notes, and bookmarks that comment. There's something in it that feels like a soft truth, something she can cling to when the weight of the past gets too heavy. Marin enters the room later, her phone buzzing with notifications. She sets it down and catches her mother's eye, a smile spreading across her face. "It's going viral," she says simply, the weight of the words not lost on either of them. Just as they begin to process what's happening, Elaine's phone buzzes with a new message. It's from Theo. "What are you doing?" his text reads, sharp and accusing, the same tone that had never stopped prying into her life. Marin glances at her phone and doesn't hesitate. "What you wouldn't," she replies, her voice steady, but there's a fire in her eyes. She stopped seeking approval, stopped trying to fit into a mold that was never hers to begin with. And now she's speaking the truth. Theo never could, one of quiet defiance, a truth that is both simple and profound. Elaine watches her daughter, proud of the way she stands her ground, and yet a pang of sadness hits her. The rift between them and their family feels impossible to mend, but she's no longer waiting for Theo or Dana to fix it. Later that evening, Elaine begins a new project. She starts knitting blankets for the shelter, the soft yarn slipping through her fingers, the rhythmic motion grounding her in the present. With each stitch, she thinks of the warmth they offer, not just to the body, but to the soul. When she's finished, she labels each blanket carefully. Warmth is a decision. It's a quiet statement, a reminder that the care she gives isn't just an act. It's a choice, one she makes every day. The following week, Gabriel arrives with the final estate documents, the ones that have been months in the making. He hands them to Elaine with a solemn nod, his expression unreadable. "Everything is final," he says quietly. "I filed everything. Theo and Dana are legally removed from everything." Elaine takes the papers, the weight of them both a relief and a confirmation. It's done. There's no going back now. The choice she made is permanent as the name she's left behind. There's a brief moment where she wonders if Theo and Dana will ever fully understand, but it's fleeting. She doesn't need them to. She's been building her own legacy all this time, brick by brick, stitch by stitch. And now, that legacy is no longer just her own. It's a part of something larger, something that will live on in the hands of people who understand what it means to show up, to give, to choose warmth. Elaine sits in the quiet after Gabriel leaves, looking at the final documents before her. The house, the money, the charitable trust, they're all pieces of the puzzle, but it's the intangible things, the moments shared with Marin, the laughter, the quiet bonds formed at the Haven House, that will outlast it all. She places the papers down with a deep breath, her heart light despite the weight. She looks up at the framed receipt on the mantel, the first donation to the Haven House. She smiles softly. She's already built the future she deserves. Elaine sits in the quiet of her living room, the phone in her hand feeling like a weight she doesn't want to bear. The voicemail from Theo has been sitting there for hours, blinking at her like a silent accusation. She had seen the notification pop up, Theo, voicemail, and thought about listening, about hearing his voice one last time, but something inside of her stopped her. The message, whatever it contained, couldn't change what had already been done. With a slow, deliberate motion, she presses the delete button. She doesn't replay it, doesn't transcribe it. The silence that follows feels cleansing, like the final sweep of a broom over a floor that's finally clear of the dust she's been carrying for so long. Marin walks in, her face bright but cautious, and she sees the phone in Elaine's hand. She knows what happened, or at least what she suspects. "Do you feel guilty?" Marin asks, a quiet weight to the question. It's the same question Elaine's been asking herself, in the corners of the night when she can't sleep, when the ache of the past still tugs at her heart. Elaine takes a breath, looking at Marin. "I feel..." She searches for the word, the one that's been elusive and yet, finally, right there on the tip of her tongue. "Clean." Marin nods, her eyes searching Elaine's face, as though trying to make sense of this new version of her mother, the one who isn't waiting for permission, who isn't asking for approval. It's a version Marin recognizes, a version she's starting to see in herself. Later that evening, after Marin goes to bed, Elaine sits at her desk, the house still and quiet around her. She opens a drawer, pulling out a worn envelope with Theo's name on it. The final letter she's written for him. She hesitates for only a moment before unfolding it. "I kept waiting for them to be like you," she writes, the ink flowing across the page as she speaks to the memory of the man she once loved. Her husband, the one who had shown up for her when others didn't. "I waited for the love, for the loyalty, for the care that I had always imagined they would offer, but it never came. And now, I'm done waiting." The words feel final. The tears come without hesitation this time, but they're different from the ones that used to fall for Theo, for what was lost. These tears are the result of a freedom Elaine hasn't known in years, the freedom that comes from releasing something that no longer serves you, something you've been holding on to long past its expiration. She puts the letter in the envelope and seals it with finality. The letter is just a piece of paper, but it holds everything: the hope, the disappointment, the anger, and the peace. A knock at the door disrupts the stillness. Elaine wipes her face quickly, the remnants of her tears drying as she walks to the door. When she opens it, Angela stands there, holding something wrapped in brown paper. She smiles, but there's an earnestness in her expression. "I thought you'd like this," Angela says, stepping inside and handing Elaine the wrapped package. Elaine carefully unwraps it, revealing a plaque, a simple, elegant design. It reads, "The Brody Room for those who showed up." Elaine's breath catches, her eyes stinging again, but not from sadness. It's a different kind of emotion, one she hadn't expected. The tears fall freely this time, but they're not tears of grief. They're tears of recognition, of gratitude. The room, the plaque, the name, they're for the people who matter, for the ones who showed up. "Thank you," Elaine whispers, looking at Angela, her heart full. "This means more than you know." Angela smiles softly. "It's for those who give without expecting anything in return." "You've given so much." Elaine nods, speechless for a moment, before turning to a new chapter. She's already started to write it, the story of the holidays that were missed and the ones she found along the way. The working title of her memoir is Missed Holidays, a fitting name for the story she now understands. That night, after the house has settled into quiet again, Elaine sits with her journal, beginning to draft the first pages of her memoir. The words come easily, like they've been waiting for her to put them down on paper. As she writes, Gabriel calls. "Elaine," he says, his voice calm and professional. "I filed everything. The public records confirming the estate and trust allocations are official. It's all done." Elaine feels the finality settle in her bones, but it's not heavy. It's liberating. She looks up from the paper, the quiet of the room settling around her, and for the first time in a long time, she feels whole, complete. The silence no longer holds her captive. It's her silence, her space, and in it, she has found everything she needed. Elaine sits in the sterile, too bright room, the air conditioning humming above her like a constant reminder of the things she's trying to forget. The doctor's voice is calm, but firm. "Early-stage heart failure," he says, the words hanging in the space between them. Not immediate, not ignorable, but manageable. Elaine's gaze stays steady on him, but inside, the words are like a jolt. Early stage. She processes it, slowly, carefully. It's not the diagnosis she expected, but it's not one she can ignore. The first wave of panic tries to break through. What does this mean? How long do I have? But she holds it in check. Panic won't do anything here. She doesn't have time for it. Instead, she breathes in slowly, releases it just as carefully, and nods. So what's next? The doctor runs through a list of medications, lifestyle changes, and monitoring. But the details aren't what Elaine hears. She hears the echo of the last line, manageable. She can do that. She's spent years managing things no one else saw, things they never knew she had to. "I'll make a plan," she says simply. "Thank you." As she leaves the office, she's still calm, still collected. She pulls out her phone and dials Maren. Her daughter picks up almost immediately. I need to talk to you, Elaine says, her voice quiet but steady. We need to make some decisions. The call is short but heavy. Marin's voice cracks slightly when she asks, Do you need me to take over as trustee right away? Elaine pauses. Yes, it's time. I've been working on it all along, but it's yours now. The weight of the decision is not lost on her, but it's the right one. Marin is ready. The future, her legacy, will be in her hands. Later that week, Elaine and Marin record a video for the Haven House's website. It's a joint effort, the two of them sitting side by side in front of the camera. Marin smiles, her eyes warm with the pride of something earned. Elaine watches her daughter, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over her. She's been waiting for this moment, for the feeling that the legacy is in the right hands, and now that moment has arrived. In the video, Elaine speaks softly but with conviction. Why do we give our names to those who earn them? Because we know that a name is more than a title. It's a promise to be seen, to be heard, to show up. Marin picks up where her mother leaves off, her voice steady and clear. When we give, we're not just handing over things. We're giving people the opportunity to rise, to rebuild, to create a life they can be proud of. When they finish, the quiet in the room feels like a celebration. They've said what needed to be said. The words they speak today will ripple out far beyond this moment, into the lives of those who need them. Elaine's thoughts wander as the camera turns off, back to the future she's creating. Later that night, she sits down at her desk, the letter she's been planning for weeks now in front of her. Open after I go, the title reads in her neat handwriting. She seals the envelope carefully, knowing it will be read only when the time comes. She doesn't know when that will be, but it doesn't matter. She's said everything she needed to, in the ways that matter most. The last thing Elaine does is pick up her phone again, scrolling through local charities, searching for one that resonates. She finds it, a nonprofit focused on helping mothers rebuild after loss. She donates her wedding dress, the one that holds memories of a time before the emptiness. It's not just a dress anymore. It's a symbol of a new beginning. As she sends the final confirmation for the donation, she feels the quiet weight of everything she's done. She's built her legacy, not just for herself, but for those who still need to be seen, for the ones who will walk the paths she's cleared. And when the time comes, when the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months, she will leave behind more than a name. She will leave a story, one that's written in the hearts of those who showed up. And that story, she knows, will outlast her. The snow falls softly outside, dusting the world in quiet white. Elaine sleeps peacefully in her bed, the soft hum of the house a gentle backdrop to the silence. A song plays softly on the radio in the corner of the room, the last song she ever heard. Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come. The familiar strains fill the space around her, pulling her deeper into the sleep she will not wake from. Her breathing slows, the rhythm of her chest no longer rising and falling. And just as the final note of her song drifts away, Elaine takes her last breath, peaceful, calm, without pain. The room is still, but the world beyond it continues on, unaware of the quiet finality in the small home. A few days later, Gabriel stands at the door with a heavy leather-bound folder under his arm. He knocks gently, waiting for someone to answer. Marin, her face pale but composed, opens the door. Her eyes are red, but she stands tall, her heart already preparing for what's next. Elaine's passing was peaceful, Gabriel says softly, his voice carrying the weight of both the legal and emotional. I'm sorry for your loss, but I've brought the letters. He hands Marin the folder, and her fingers tremble as she takes it. You know what these are? Gabriel asks, his gaze steady but kind. Marin nods, swallowing hard. I do, she knew. She retreats to the living room, sitting down on the couch. Her hand hovers over the folder, unsure whether to open them now or later. But there is no later, and so she opens the first letter. Dana's letter is the first one Marin reads, her mother's handwriting clear and steady. You chose appearances over presence. Charlie had more appointments than I had visits. You were there when it was convenient, when it fit into the calendar, but I was still waiting for you. I thought you might come back, but I can't wait anymore. I can't hold on to the fantasy of you, not when it's clear you never saw me the way you should have. Marin's breath catches as she reads, the words raw, pointed. She's always known that the relationship with Dana had been strained, but reading this makes the truth of it final. The finality, too, of her mother's voice. Calm, measured, yet full of unspoken pain. The next letter is Theo's, and Marin opens it slowly, unsure what she'll find. You acted like I was on pause. I stopped waiting for you to press play. You let the silence stretch between us for years. I needed you to show up, to be here with me, not just in the way you think you should. I'm not sure what I expected from you, but it's clear now. What I needed you to do, you never did. Marin clenches her jaw as she reads the words that Elaine had so carefully written. She can feel the weight of her mother's disappointment in Theo, the same disappointment that had lived in the space between them all these years. But there's something else too, something softer. Acceptance. The silence will never be fixed. She understands that now. The third letter is Marin's, her name neatly written at the top. She hesitates for a moment before unfolding it, wondering what words her mother had chosen for her. You never needed to earn it. You just came. You showed up even when I didn't know how to ask. And when I couldn't take another step, you were there. You were everything they weren't, everything I needed. Marin's throat tightens as she reads, her eyes filling with tears. This was the letter she had always hoped to read, but never thought she would. She was her mother's constant, the one who didn't have to try, the one who was just there, and that Elaine had finally understood. Finally, Angela's letter is opened. Marin's fingers hesitate once more before she begins. You turned nothing into shelter. Thank you. Marin smiles softly as she reads, the simplicity of the words striking deep. Angela's gratitude, like so many things, was quiet, but it was always there, constant, unwavering, a simple truth in a world that too often looked for something more complicated. Marin sets the last letter down, the weight of it settling over her like a blanket. These were the things Elaine had carried with her, the words left unsaid, the truths unspoken. But now they were all here, shared. The space that had once felt so empty is now filled with them, filled with her mother's final words to those who mattered most. She feels the sting of loss, but she also feels something else, a quiet resolve. Elaine's legacy wasn't just in the money, in the trust, or the things she had left behind. It was in the letters, in the lives she touched, and in the lessons she gave, even when they weren't asked for. Marin stands up, holding the letters close to her chest. She walks over to the window, watching the snow fall softly outside, the world continuing on as it always does. But inside, everything is different. Elaine's story will continue, one word at a time, through Marin and the lives she'll touch, through the trust she'll uphold. Elaine's voice might be gone, but the echo of it is still here, and it will never fade. The day the estate is activated, Marin stands in front of the filing cabinets, the final documents in hand. The trust is now fully in her control, and the assets are set to be distributed. She doesn't look at the figures. She doesn't need to. What matters is where it's going. The Haven House receives its portion, a charitable trust set up to help the community that has supported them both. A portion goes to the library fund, earmarked for those who believe in the power of knowledge, just as Elaine always did. It feels right. It feels complete. She breathes in deeply, the weight of the papers heavy in her hands. She signed her name, but it's more than just ink on a page. It's a legacy passed, a story written in her mother's voice. But the story isn't over yet. Not entirely. Within days, Theo and Dana attempt to contest the will. The letters they'd been given, Elaine's final words, weren't enough to keep them from seeking what they thought was theirs by right. They argue. They claim entitlement. They have always been a part of the family after all. Gabriel responds quickly, his tone professional but unyielding. No standing, no rights. It's a simple statement, one that cuts through the air with the finality of a judge's gavel. There's nothing they can do. The documents are legal, the trust ironclad. And for the first time, they realize, truly realize, that their names are no longer tied to anything that matters. A few weeks later, Marin stands at the front of the Haven House's community room, preparing for the memorial. She can feel her mother's presence, that quiet power that had filled the room whenever Elaine spoke, whenever she gave. The seats are filled, the room packed with dozens of people who showed up, not just for the memorial, but for everything Elaine built, the legacy that she left behind. But they're not there. Theo and Dana don't come. They never show up. Not for Elaine, not for what she built. They're not part of the story anymore, and they never will be again. Charlie the dog, now older and graying, lounges by the door, still a steady presence in the shelter. He lives another 8 years, outliving the people who were supposed to love him, the ones who chose grooming appointments over family. In the years that follow, Dana never once mentions Elaine on her social feed. Not a birthday, not a memorial, not even a passing thought. The silence between them remains, louder than any words could have been. But outside the family, Elaine's story is starting to resonate. The Christmas Nobody Came is no longer just a personal story. The pamphlet is adopted into statewide elder care training. It becomes a part of the conversation, a tool to help others understand the importance of presence in caregiving. Marin stands in front of a local conference hall months later, a mic in her hand. It's not the first time she's spoken at such an event, but it's the first time she's done so without the weight of her mother's absence pressing on her shoulders. She smiles softly at the audience, the same quiet strength that Elaine carried now evident in her every word. "You don't inherit legacy, you show up for it," Marin says, her voice steady, her words filling the room. And as the applause fills the air, Marin knows, deep in her bones, that her mother's legacy isn't something that can be erased. Not by them, not by anyone. As the conference wraps up, Marin steps off the stage, a slight but proud smile on her face. She knows there are more stories to tell, more people to help, and as she walks back toward the reception, a final thought echoes in her mind. They left me alone on Christmas Eve because their dog had a grooming appointment, so I left their names off every document that mattered. The words settle in her chest, not with anger, but with a sense of finality. She had been waiting for something that would never come, but now she's done waiting. Now the legacy is hers, and it is more than enough.